are in listen only mode, so we can't hear you. To introduce us today, my name is Demelza Potter. I work in the business development team here at CAG Corp. I mainly work with central and local government customers, helping them make the most of their GIS investments. My co-presenter today is Simon. Over to you.
Thank you, Demelza. Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Parker. I'm the pre-sales team leader at CAD Corp, and this morning I'll be demonstrating some examples of how you can communicate your service information with web mapping.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, let's get started. So I can see from those of you who have joined us today that some of you are from our existing customer base, and some of you are new to CAG Corp. So I'll give you a bit of information about CAG Corp. I'm going to then introduce Simon's demo by talking about what makes a map or visualization engaging before dedicating the majority of time today for Simon to show you in practice. Following the demo, we'll answer as many questions as we can, and I'll briefly discuss the cost effectiveness of next generation mapping, the mapping that you will be seeing today, and going on to wrap up towards the end. Before we start today then, let's run a poll. Let's just get the question up here on screen. Does your organisation effectively communicate its information to its residents? If you could vote for me, please. We've got yes, no, and unsure. Just give you a few seconds. It's looking like we've got quite a split today, so 40-odd% yes, 15% no, 44% unsure. So lots of different reasons, I expect, why you're here today. So hopefully some of you want to continuously sort of improve your communication with your residents, and some of you are here to see some examples of how you can actually start to do that. Second poll then, to keep this nice and interactive today. Does your organisation make use of maps to communicate information to its residents? Please go again and have a vote, and we'll take a look at the results in a second. So pretty split again between sort of yes and sometimes. So perhaps we can show you some examples of where maps work well in communicating information today. Simon's going to show you lots of examples to give you some inspiration. Okay, let's get on with the content. So give you a bit more information about CAG Corp. We are UK based and focus on the development and delivery of our product CAG Corp Sys, which includes web, mobile and desktop GIS applications. We also provide complementary spatial data and services and work across a number of sectors. Today in this webinar we've got a focus on the government sector. CAG Corp Sys, or Spatial Information System, is our suite of GIS products covering web, mobile and desktop. All products provide interactive and dynamic access to geospatial data, and CAG Corp Sys can be either hosted in the cloud or managed and installed locally. Key strengths of the product. These include, we often talk about these: data format support, database and web services support. So over 300 different formats supported, and that's really useful for our customers for using data from different systems and bringing it all together. Linking to that, support for all Ordnance Survey data. Obviously, as government organisations, you're very used to and want to use the most up-to-date Ordnance Survey data. Lots of advanced functionality is included in our products as standard, and there's an API available for customization and integration should you need it. So the image on screen is a product called WebMap, and some of you will be aware earlier this year we had a significant new release, version 9.1, which really is next generation web mapping. It had new improved functionality and a newly designed, easy to use interface. But before we see this in action, I'm just going to introduce what makes a map or visualization engaging. What we see on screen might be of use to some of your users, but not others. So web mapping really needs to be flexible. And I'm going to talk about 5 different things which make a map or visualization engaging, and in no particular order. First of all, I'm going to talk about customization. Customization includes maps which might be built to suit the needs of different users. This might be having relevant searches, relevant layers, relevant permissions. But users always welcome a tailored approach rather than having to wade through all of the layers perhaps that they are looking for. So customization. My second point today, publishing live data feeds. Live data feeds provide a dynamic experience. They ensure the most up-to-date information as possible, which instills confidence that any interpretation is based on the most up-to-date information at this point in time. Informing decisions. So web mapping needs to facilitate data sharing and analytics to perhaps identify patterns or trends that inform decision making. Really important, that point. Collaborative. Web mapping and visualization needs to be collaborative and should encourage active participation from whoever the users are. And finally, integration. Web mapping should be able to be seamlessly integrated with other platforms and applications. For example, we see interactive maps integrated with websites, CRM systems, planning systems, Microsoft apps, and lots of back office systems that you may have within your organizations. When embedded into a CRM, for example, this can help to streamline workflows. It reduces manual data entry and ensures data is consistent and up to date across all different platforms. So Simon's going to show you some examples demonstrating these 5 points. He's going to give you a live demo, which will be much more engaging than the PowerPoint slides that I've given you this morning. Simon's got various examples or use cases, starting with using the intranet for internal users and then moving on to the internet for residents to use, finishing off with some integration with Power BI and various examples there. Feel free to ask any questions and Simon and I will be picking them up directly after his demo. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Demelza. Good morning to you all again. So yes, as Demelza mentioned, for the next sort of 30 minutes or so, I'm going to show how web mapping can be used to communicate your service information. Now, yeah, web mapping is a great tool for local authorities to share service information to a large community of users. And that community might include your internal colleagues, but also the general public who perhaps want to find out information via your website. And that is achievable with web mapping because you can deploy the application multiple times. So you could have one deployed for internal use and then another version for the general public to access. So during my demonstration, I'm going to be demonstrating how you can customize web mapping. I'm going to show you an internal version of web mapping, showcasing 2 types of internal users. And then, for the second part, we'll have a look at an example of customizing web mapping to share information to members of the public. So let's start with my internal deployment first. So perhaps I'm, one of your colleagues, maybe a non-technical user in a local plan team who wants to use web mapping to view policy information. So I'm going to access web map with my login, which I've already populated my credentials in here. Now for my internal deployment of web mapping, I have enabled security. I'm using forms authentication today, but there are other options available. So we can integrate with your Active Directory, or we can even use Azure Active Directory if you want to deploy in the cloud. But once my credentials are authorized, I'm directed to a map. And this is what the next generation of web mapping looks like with CAD Corpsys Web Map 9.1. Now, just like Google Maps, you can use your mouse to zoom and pan around the map to find a location of interest. And what you can see on screen, you'll all probably recognize is Ordnance Survey mapping, which you all have access to as part of your PSGA membership. And this particular example here, this mapping is actually coming directly from the OS Maps API as a live data feed. And if I zoom into the map a little bit more, that also includes access to the master map topography layer. So just being able to connect to this service is a real big time saver for administrators in web mapping, because instead of downloading the data from the Ordnance Survey, you might then upload it to your spatial database. You'll then create a web map tile service, and then you'll publish it into your web mapping application. You can kind of scrap all that processing time now, because WebMap can connect directly to that service from the Ordnance Survey, and you get this sort of seamless, up-to-date mapping directly into the application. Now, if I access the quick access drawer in the top right-hand corner of the interface, we can turn on and off any of the sort of the business overlays that have been published in the map. And this particular map has been designed for my local plan team, and it's a map which shows all the sort of local plan policies. Now, I can turn these policies individually, turn them on individually if I was interested in maybe a specific policy. So, for example, these data sets prefixed with ED are my economic development policy. So if I was interested in perhaps just viewing those particular policies on the map, I could go through and turn those individual layers on, and we can see some of those features there on display on the map. Alternatively, maybe I want to see them all, so I can use this toggle at the bottom just to turn all of the layers on. And this is just an example to show how complex local plan policy maps can be, with all that information you might have to display all at the same time. And I can appreciate it's obviously a challenge for yourself to create all these sort of different styles for the sort of different policies that typically exist within a local plan. Then in the top left-hand corner of the interface is a menu, and this gives you access to additional functionality that web mapping can offer. And this is where you can customize the interface for your targeted user. And I said at the sort of the beginning that I'm a non-technical user. I don't need a lot of functionality for my sort of business needs. So in this list, I've just got access to some generic mapping tools. And I'll just give you a very quick overview of these particular tools in this map. So that includes access to measure, which allows you to measure areas and distances on the map. There are also two other ways that this user can navigate the map. So we've got zoom to coordinates, where you can specify a set of coordinates, and the app will take you to that location on the map. Alternatively, you can have saved bookmarks or map locations. So administrators can set up maybe favorite map locations for specific urban areas or wards, but every user can also add their own as well. Also available to this user, they've got access to drawing. So these provide markup tools, so you can annotate the map. That also includes adding labels. They've got access to publish, which allows you to create your own PDF maps, and I'll show you this in a little bit more detail later. And then also available to this particular user, they've got access to capture, which grabs a screenshot of the map, which you can basically download as an image. So these are all kind of the general mapping tools that are available to use for this particular map. But that isn't everything that web mapping has to offer. It does have a lot more capability, which we're going to explore next. So I'm actually going to close this browser and move away from this particular user, and then log back into my internal sites again, but this time as a different user. So I think my Google Chrome browser is just a little bit slow to load here, so just bear with me. Apologies for this. My Google Chrome browser is failing to load, so just bear with me for a few moments. There we go. That's much better. So yeah, so moving on to my second example. So yep, I'm about to log into my internal site again, but this time as a different user. So I'm going to add in their particular credentials. So this particular user works in our parks maintenance team, but they've got a particularly different requirement for web mapping. They need to do more than just view information on the map. So with these credentials, I'm directed to a different map compared to that previous example that I've just showed you. And that's because with web mapping, you can publish as many different maps as you like. And using security, you can manage who can access them. Now, this particular map is designed for my parks maintenance user. So in the top right-hand corner, if I go to the quick access drawer, I've actually got a different list of layers available in this map compared to the previous local plan map that I just showed you. And that includes an overlay which shows the location of all our trees that we manage as an authority. Now, if I jump to the main menu in the top left-hand corner, there's actually a longer list of options available for this particular user. Now, it includes some of the options I just described with the local plan maps. That includes measure and zoom to coordinates, but there are also some additional options for this particular user, and that includes query right at the bottom of the list here. And query is basically like a search and reporting tool where you can kind of search for data on the map. So as an example, maybe I want to generate a report of trees within a particular area of interest. So we're going to search the trees data set. Now there are a couple of different ways you can search the data. So you can maybe select a ward and say, let's find all trees within this ward. Maybe I'll drop a pin on the map with a radius of 100 meters. I want to find all trees within that area. Maybe I want to draw a line along a road, add a buffer and say find all trees along this road. And then the sort of the final option, which is the example I'm going to use today, is just draw sort of an area on the map to cover my area of interest. So I'm going to draw around this area that I want to report on. We'll complete the wizard, and what it does now is basically takes that search area and then queries the data and then presents its findings in this table view at the bottom of the interface. And right in the sort of corner here, I can see that 34 trees were found as part of that search. Now, as part of these results, you do have an option to filter the results as well. So here I can see in the data, I've got the species of tree. Maybe I want to look at a list of how many trees are cherry trees. So I can use this little sort of calculator here to kind of filter the data based on a value. So we're going to filter the species column, and I want to filter by cherry tree. Apply the filter on the right hand side, and of the original 34 results, we can see 7 of those were cherry trees. You can also export the contents of this CSV out, so that's great because you can use a map to perform your search on the data, get the results of your analysis, and then you can export the data to CSV, so you can use that for reporting purposes outside of the mapping application. And if I just close sort of the results dialog and just return back to sort of the quick access drawer, you also get a temporary layer displaying the results of the search as well. And that might be useful if you now want to generate a report or a PDF map of those results as well. So in the top left-hand corner, I mentioned in the previous map, and we've got publish. And this basically allows you to create PDF maps. Now these maps can be up to A0 in size, and you can also use a print template of your choice. Now, administrators can design as many different templates to make available within web mapping. They can include your corporate branding, and it also means you can have different maps for different purposes. So here I've got some maps specifically for use for tree mapping. So I'm going to choose an A3 landscape template. We can position it on the map, make it smaller or larger with our mouse wheel. Or if you want a specific scale, we can type that here on the right-hand side to adjust the frame accordingly. And then once we're happy with the position, we'll click next. And what we get next is a sort of a preview of the map inside our selected print template. But you also have the option on the right-hand side to add additional text to your print as well. So it might be that we want to include a title on our print. So at the top here, I'll add a title. So we'll just say this is tree mapping for where are we, Postern Close. Maybe as part of our mapping standards, we need to add the initials of the person creating the map. Maybe we also include some sort of reference for these particular maps as well. And then when we hit update here, those sort of additional text will appear in our print preview. So at the top here, we can see my title has been added. And then once we're happy with our print layouts, we can then sort of create and download that as a PDF file. And obviously the benefit of creating a PDF is that you can store it, share it, and you can print it. And with us and this application here, it also creates an interactive map document as well, because on the right hand side, this is just using Adobe Reader. So this is the free software. I can turn on and off the different data layers in the map here as well. So I've almost created my own interactive map as a PDF document, and it's just another way of being able to share service information. So yeah, those are some really nice options that are available within web mapping, where you can use query for performing searches on your data with the option to export to CSV, and you've got publish there where you can create your own PDF maps, which is really handy for your colleagues to have access to, especially allowing colleagues to perhaps self-serve and create their own maps within a nice, easy to use environment, rather than perhaps sending those map requests to your GIS team to perform on their behalf. Now, in addition to sort of those reporting options, this user is also responsible for maintaining the business overlays that we can see on the map. That might be adding new features to the data sets, or maybe making changes to existing data. Now, from the main menu, this particular user has also been granted access to editing, which is one of our sort of add-in options for web mapping. It provides easy to use data management tools. But don't worry, administrators, you can control who has access to these tools, so that only those with the permission to make changes to the data are allowed to do so. And I'm just going to show you sort of two very quick examples this morning. So this parks user needs to add a new feature to the grass cutting layer, a new piece of grass that we need to maintain. So on the left hand side, we're going to add a new grass cutting area, and then we're going to start drawing that area on the map over the master map data we can see underneath. Now you can enable snapping against master map, which is applied after you've drawn the feature, and when you've drawn your feature, up pops a little form here. Again, the administrator can manage and design this particular form. So this is the attribute information we are capturing. Now, again, there are a number of different ways you can manage this. So if I try to hit create here at the bottom, it will fail to save because I've actually set some of these fields up as mandatory fields. So that ensures some fields are always populated. You can also have a mixture of free text fields or even drop down lists with predefined values to select from. So I'll just go through, start adding in some details for this new area of grass that we're adding to our data set. I'll use this drop down to select the type of scheme. And then when I hit create, the new grass is added. And for this particular example, I've also got a sort of dynamic label there showing me the area of that feature in square meters. So that's just one way of being able to update and add data via the editing tools. For the next generation of web mapping, it also includes additional advanced functionality. That includes being able to copy data between your business overlays. We've also got a nice new data capture tool here where you can actually click on features on master map and copy them into your business overlay. So that is all now within sort of this web environment. And then just the second example I'm going to show you this morning is you can also combine and merge data together as well. So just as an example, I've got these two adjacent polygons in my data set here. Perhaps it just makes sense to sort of clean the data a bit and just combine them into one larger feature. So I'm going to select my grass cutting layer. I'm going to click on the two polygons on the map to merge, so you can see them listed there in the dialog. When we merge, we're going to remove the original features. We'll merge the data together now. Again, we get that pop-up form so we can just confirm the attributes we want to record for this new combined feature. So I'll populate those details, and then when I hit merge, we've now created one single polygon, and we've also got an updated label there with the aggregated square meterage. So those were just sort of two quick examples there of the sort of the edit add-in. It really is a simple to use add-in that can allow specific users to manage their own business data sets. And then just to sort of finish off this particular use case, in the top left-hand corner, this particular user has access to My Data. Now, My Data provides access to a host of new features that are now available with the next generation of web mapping. And some of these are features you recognize from the desktop, but now featuring within sort of the web mapping environment. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them in too much detail today just because of time constraints, but if you would like to see them in more detail, or you would like to have a one-to-one session with CADCorp and your organization just to delve deeper into a web map, feel free to request a follow-up demonstration in the exit survey at the end of the webinar. Now, yeah, these new features in my data include the table window. So that basically allows you to view the information behind the data we're seeing on the map. So if I look at the data behind my trees data set, again, a similar table view to the query that I showed you earlier, I can now see data for the 34 features within my current map view. Also available within my data is the capability to export data to a GIS file as well. So you can maybe use this to get extracts of data, maybe use it to share data. You can even export your drawing layer as well. So you can make your own markups with the drawing tools, and then you can share them with colleagues. And the way they can load them into the map is that they can use another feature called the add GeoJSON file. So they could add in shared markups through WebMap. They can also add any open data or data that's been shared with colleagues into the map as well. So as long as they're in GeoJSON format, they can load the data into the map and overlay that with the Ordnance Survey data. And then finally, within sort of my data and these additional options here, they've got this add theme option. So this is an opportunity for users to maybe restyle the data for their own personal preference. They can even add labels as well. So as a very quick example this morning, I'm going to select my trees again, and I just want to add a label to each of my trees to show the species of tree. So we're going to choose the label option, choose the column we're going to label with, um, different options for justifying and styling the label. But when I hit submit, I've now added the label to the map showing each species of tree. So yeah, just sort of a very quick overview there of some of the advanced features that are now available with the next generation of web mapping. So to conclude my use case of using web mapping to share information internally with your colleagues, it's an easy to use application. You can publish as many maps as you like, so you can build these focus maps for sort of different business areas. And from a user perspective, you can tailor their experience depending on their requirements. So if they just need to view data like my local plan user that I started with, that's great because you can just streamline the interface with the tools they need. If that user requires some more advanced functionality, like my second use case is with my parks maintenance colleague, that's great as well because we can give them access to these additional features if they require them. And for all of those sort of same reasons I've sort of described, our customers are also deploying web mapping on their websites to share some of their service information to the general public. So let's now move on to the, sort of the next stage of my demonstration and look at some examples. So this next map is a map that I've published for my website for the general public to view. And as you can see, it's exactly the same interface as my internal deployment. You can even change all the colors if you wish, if you wanted to provide a bit of distinction between your sort of internal and external version. But I've configured this particular interface to be quite simple for my target audience. Now, if I go to the quick access drawer on the right hand side again, in this map, I'm sharing some of the key service information that might be of most interest to my residents or visitors to my website. So that might include looking at planning applications. So let's zoom into Bradford and I'll turn on my planning application overlay, which is just shown as these red boundaries here. Maybe I'm interested in planning applications at this location here. So if I click on the map, on the left-hand side, it tells me it's found 9 records in my planning application data set, which I can sort of toggle through and to see each of those records. But included in this data, I've also got a hyperlink here. And this link could be where a resident can find a planning application of interest using the map, and then you could click that link, and that link can take you to, or take them to their sort of your online planning system where you can kind of view more information about that planning application. Beyond planning applications, maybe we want to share information around listed buildings. So I've got some listed building data here. Again, if I click on a listed building to interrogate it, these are some of the sort of standard attributes that come with this listed building open data set. It also includes a hyperlink as well, which is quite useful because again, I can just click and go out to the Historic England website, to the web page for this particular record for this listed building, and I can view further information for that listed building. Maybe we want to share information around, where our primary and secondary schools are. So I've got a few pins on the map to show where they are. Maybe we want to use a map to share our gritting route, so residents know which roads will be gritted during winter conditions. And then just sort of one last example, if I just zoom out of the map slightly, we might use a platform to share information from partner agencies as well. So maybe it might be useful for visitors to see maybe flood zone information on our maps from the Environment Agency. And one of the, what makes web mapping also very flexible here is that the solution supports a display of web services like WMS and WFS. So you could display any live data feeds from other partner agencies in the mapping as well if they're available. So by sharing a map like this, visitors can, access the information themselves. They can turn on and off that information that they wish to see. But however, there is an alternative way that they can access information, but as an automated service. So first of all, what I want to do is navigate to a location of interest on the map. Now, as well as zooming and panning around the map, another way of doing this is to use the search here at the top of the interface to find a location. And this is a sort of Google type search, a one box to type and search for a location. Now this search can connect to the Ordnance Survey names and places API. Again, you have access to as part of your PSGA membership. And again, it's just another opportunity to connect to a live data feed. Now the places API gives you access to the full address search. The names API provides searches for sort of different parts of an address. So that includes like the street name or a postcode. So as an example, today I'm going to run a postcode search. And when I run that search, it's connecting directly to the OS names API. We use my search criteria, returning some results, and against my postcode search here, the results are basically listed where we get the best match at the top. So I've got an exact match there at the top based on my search, and then we get some fuzzy matches underneath. The search isn't limited to these APIs. You can, of course, connect your own local LLPG or address data if you wish to use that for address searching. In fact, you can actually use any GIS data for searching as long as the data has got a unique reference of some sort, and obviously it's got the coordinate information. You can use a search to search for it. So, for example, some of our customers use it to allow visitors to the map to search for a planning application, maybe a TPO, or even a traffic regulation order. So it's really flexible. And then when you select a search that you're interested in, the map then takes you to that location. So we're at our location of interest. Again, I could go to the quick access drawer, turn on and off those different business layers that I'm interested in for this particular area. Or alternatively, I can use a service that will quickly summarize this information in 2 clicks. So in the top left-hand corner, we're going to access local knowledge. So I'm going to run local knowledge, and what local knowledge does is it takes your current map location. It can then search a variety of your different business overlays to provide basically a summary of information for this location on the map. And these can be different types of spatial questions. So it's ideal for, putting all this information into one place, because as a visitor or a resident to your website, instead of, navigating different web pages on your website or maybe contacting your contact center, they can run local knowledge and get all that information here in a single place. So using this location, my local knowledge has been designed to ask some different questions like, okay, at this location, what ward I'm in, so I can see this location is in the city ward. It's asking, when are my bins due for collection? We normally remember what day it is, but we often forget what color it is because we have so many different bins nowadays. So here, just reminding me which bin is due for curbside collection. It could be a find my nearest type search. So here it's telling me the 3 nearest bus stops to this location and also giving me a distance to tell me how far away they are. Could be another spatial search here. Tell me about listed buildings near me. Listed buildings within 250 meters. So there's quite a few from this location. And then the last example I've got here, like a true or false type question. Do I fall in a conservation area? Yes or no. And this is just one example that you could use it for. I mentioned previously that with WebMap you can publish as many different maps as you want, and for every map you can actually set up local knowledge to ask different types of questions. So I'm going to quickly show you another example using a different map. Now you might remember the very first map that I showed you, so that was my internal local plan user. I've published the exact same map for the general public to access. However, if I go to the main menu in the top left-hand corner, I've customized this map for public consumption. So there are no measuring tools, there's no drawing tools, or any of the tools I sort of described earlier with that first map. For the general public, when they're accessing local plan information here, all they've got access to in this map is local knowledge. So as a resident, they might use any of the sort of navigation tools to go to an area of interest on the map, and then they can run local knowledge. So for this particular example here, I've designed local knowledge slightly differently. So at this location, it's now just giving me a list of the local plan policies that exist at this particular location. So I've basically created here like a self-service channel, so visitors can actually retrieve the information by themselves when otherwise they might contact you or use some of your officer time to provide that same information. And you might now be thinking of sort of loads of other ideas and different types of searches that you might be able to do with local knowledge. But as long as you've got your data mapped, you can use it with this particular web service. So yeah, local knowledge, a really great tool to add to web mapping, streamlines the way you can serve out information to your target audience. And as I mentioned, might even save officers time as well if the public can kind of self-serve and retrieve that information by themselves. So yeah, those are a couple of examples of how you can use web mapping, the web mapping interface to share information to the general public. I hope you're not feeling too overwhelmed at this point. I have shown you loads of different ideas so far, but after the webinar, you will get a link to recording of the webinar, so you can actually sort of revisit these examples at a later date. But I just want to finish off my demonstration just by showing you some other opportunities for sharing information via your website. Now, one way is to embed maps on your web pages to sort of supplement the information we're providing to visitors of your websites. A common example we see embedded maps is for showing locations of car parks. For your website administrators, it's just 2 lines of code to embed a map. And you've got the advantage here of using Ordnance Survey as your background map. Again, this is actually mapping coming from the OS Maps API, so you can kind of replace the use of Bing and Google Maps, which you might have on your website currently. This capability is included with the web mapping solution at no additional cost, and there's also sort of no limit on the number of maps you can embed across your website. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to embed a map, you could provide a link to a map instead. Now, these links can be designed to open a map at a specific location. So in this example, I've got a pretty boring web page here. It's just loads of text, just giving me details about all the car parks. I'm interested in a particular car park, so let's select Pine Street from the list. So it takes me to that section on the website. But what I've done here is included a link on the page. So if I click this link that I've created, that takes me to a map, and then the location of the car park is centered on the map, so I can actually see the location of this car park. And then just to take it one step further, you can do even more with that link than just open a map at a specific location. Now, as part of that link, you can actually ask it to open a dialog or launch a service within this web map interface. So in this next example, we'll just use a bit of imagination. So you could maybe embed an address search into your website. So a visitor will type in an address they want to search. They get a little drop-down list of addresses based on that search. And then when they click that search result, WebMap can open up that address and then execute local knowledge automatically. So in this example, I'm going to pretend we've clicked the link for this address here. So it's centered it at the address on the map here. And then on the left-hand side, it's automatically run local knowledge. So this is an example of that local plan, local knowledge that I just showed you. So I put an address, gone to a location, run local knowledge, and very quickly I've got a list of those local plan policies that affect this particular location. So yeah, you've got all of these additional options in the toolbox where you can embed a map on your website, or you can create links to a map which can perform specific actions depending on your own requirements. And then the final opportunity I'm going to share with you is the inclusion of web mapping in Microsoft Power BI. Now, we've certainly seen an increase in the use of Microsoft Power BI for performance reporting amongst local authorities, because Power BI helps organizations like yourself to create interactive reports to help inform your decisions internally. But I've also seen examples where sort of local authorities are publishing Power BI reports on their website, so the general public can access and view specific information as well. So I'm just going to show you sort of very quickly three different examples. So one of these sort of example reports that I've seen on a local authority website is using Power BI to share information about sort of planned roadworks or highways improvements. And generally, these reports that I've seen is uh, just this table here. So they just have this table that I can see on the left-hand side here, filling the whole report, just listing all of the kind of the roadwork schemes that are happening within the authority. But with our integration, you can also include a map within those Power BI reports. So in this example, here I've got all the roadworks that are planned within my local authority. And as I visited my website, I've opened up this report and I'm interested in maybe roadworks in my particular town. So I can use these options in the report to say I'm only interested in looking at roadwork schemes within this particular town. And then by selecting that sort of filter there, I can see a map which just shows me the locations of those schemes within my authority. There's also additional options in this report to filter further. So actually, I only want to see what roadworks are currently in progress. Again, we can see the table here is filtered just to show me those schemes. Again, the map is filtered as well to show me those locations, of which I can sort of hover over and view further information. But then maybe I want to focus on a particular scheme in the list here. So maybe I want to look at this one in more detail, Blackthorn Lane here. Again, just by selecting that result, and the map updates as well to show me that location. So using a map in this example just helps me understand geographically where these particular events are occurring. I'll show two more quick examples. Now, with our latest release of our integration, we've included support for graduated circles, which means you can share analysis with the embedded map here as well. So this one is sharing analysis about the number of visits to libraries in York. So at the top, it tells me how many visits occurred across all libraries within this particular financial year. But on the map, these graduated circles with different colors show the count of visits. I can see this large circle in the middle, which is York Explore Library. So this has had the most number of visits across all of our libraries. And then just one more example. It doesn't just have to be point data we're visualizing within these Power BI maps. It can be displaying lines or polygon as shown in this example here. So these are ward boundaries. I've color coded them to show the distribution of household grants that have been awarded to some of our residents in our local authority area. And the darker the color, the higher the total amount of awards that have been issued. And if I use the filter in this report to focus on a particular ward, so sort of the Castle ward there, again, these visuals give me all the stats for this particular ward, but on the map, we can just see the ward boundary for this particular ward as well. So yeah, three quick examples there just to show you how web mapping could be integrated with Power BI and to help you visualize and share the information. And that also brings a close to my demonstration this morning. So I hope it's given you some ideas on how web mapping can be deployed to communicate service information, whether that be to your internal colleagues or via your website to members of the public. So thank you for watching my demonstration. I'll now hand you back to Demelza. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. What we'll do now, just turn on our cameras and answer a few of your questions. Simon, we've had a couple of questions that I can probably point to you.
Sure.
So the first one James mentioned, he said about mobile mapping. Does it work on phones? Great question. Over to you,
Yeah,
Simon.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yep. So the short answer is yes. So when you open Web Map, it detects the device you're using to access it. So if it's a mobile device, you get like a simplified version of the interface, and as you would with any other sort of mapping on mobile devices, you can swipe the screen to pan. You can use a pinch technique to zoom in and out, and you'll also get access to some of the features that I've demonstrated today. So that includes sort of local knowledge and also editing as well. So that might be handy if you wanted to make any updates to your data whilst you're out and about. So yeah, Web Map can be effectively accessed on a variety of different devices, including mobiles and tablets.
Great, thank you. And a question from Luke. I think I've read about utilising what 3 words locations. Is that available? Again, over to you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Tomaso. Yep. So yeah, what three words yeah is supported in Web Map. Most of you are probably aware of what three words. If you don't, it's just basically what three words. They basically divided the world into like 3 meter squares, and then each square has got like a unique combination of 3 words. So maybe for local authorities, you might encourage your users to report issues using what 3 words. Maybe what the common ones, sort of fly tipping, maybe potholes, fallen trees, for example, because it might be useful for reporting issues located in like remote locations which aren't associated to an address or a street. And in terms of how the integration works with what 3 words, kind of works in 2 ways. So you can either click on the map within Web Map, and then it will tell you what that 3 word address is for that location, or you can type in a what 3 words address, and then the map will take you to that particular location as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, what 3 words is supported in Web Map.
Great, thank you, Simon. Give Simon a little bit of a rest. I think his voice needs a rest. I'll answer the next one. So we've had a question from Cheryl about cloud. Is it a cloud solution? So it can be. So we can deploy in the cloud, and certainly the majority of new customers that we get on board, we do deploy in the cloud because that's what's requested. But we do have a number of customers utilising web mapping on site, and some also in hybrid situations with some parts of the solution in the cloud and some parts on site. So there's options there, and we would work with you and your IT for the best possible solution. We've had a few specific questions come in. I'll pick up the one from Christopher about locating the map. So in Simon's demo, you saw the map locating at a specific car park. And yes, you're right, Christopher, that information is in the URL. What I'll do is I'll ask one of my colleagues to send you a link to the online help, and that will give you the information to be able to set up those links yourself. Okay, I'm aware we've got a few more slides to go. If we haven't answered your question as part of this session, what we'll do is shortly after, one of my colleagues will be in touch with the answer. Okay, so just to round up, is next generation web mapping cost effective? Well, in short, I'll say yes, it is. And to coin a phrase, buy once, use many. The systems like this ultimately save time and resources, and for users, whether they be residents or colleagues, that means they can self-serve in the most appropriate or effective way for them. And if you're looking to procure web mapping, make sure it's next generation. And today we've been promoting the ability to easily customize, publish data feeds, make sure that it informs decisions, collaborate, integrate. We want systems to be able to do this because it helps us in our everyday lives. And just to finish up today, this infographic is a bit of a cheat sheet if you need to remind yourself of what to expect from next generation web mapping. This gives you all of the information in one piece of paper, if you like, or one image, and you'll be sent a link to this in the follow-up email shortly. Just a quick plug, you're all invited to our free to attend local government conferences in November. We've got one in London and one in Manchester, and we'll be discussing emergent priorities such as levelling up and regeneration. We'll also be discussing next generation web mapping again, but also the next generation of exciting new products that are currently in development. Registration link is on screen, but don't worry, we'll send you an email in the a follow-up email after with the details in shortly. So we look forward to seeing you at this event or other future events in future. Finally, we'd really appreciate if you could take the time to complete our short feedback survey, which will pop up at the end and will help us to deliver relevant webinars like this for you in future. Thank you for attending today.